you use annihilation somewhat synonymously or interchangeably with genocide. So I just want to think about how you're defining the annihilation of a people or genocide in this book.
Or maybe even further synonymously with extinction. And by that I mean not just, it doesn't necessarily, I mean, genocide never kills every single person. The Armenian genocide, the Holocaust genocide. But this is a little different even than that. This is a situation in which the defeated are not just killed off, or in some cases in the ancient world, they're enslaved, but their defeat and their physical space is destroyed, their language is doomed, their culture disappears. So it would be as if in the Holocaust situation, there were no more Jewish people, there was no more Yiddish or Hebrew language, there was no more Jewish religion, and the Jewish people as a distinct entity disappeared. So, sort of what Iran is threatening all the time. And it's very rare. And then there's, of course, it's hard, you get a typology, and Greece did not disappear, but the Boeotians as embodied by the Thebans did. In other words, all the people who claimed to be Thebans with a particular dialect of Boeotian and a particular physical space and a particular history were wiped out by Alexander, with just a few minor exceptions. The descendants of the poet Pindar, some religious officials, and anybody lucky to be out of the city at the time, either as an exile or on business. Everybody else was annihilated. The language, the Boeotian, the idea of a Theban Boeotian disappeared. The physical structure was raised after probably 2,000 years. And the physical space was important. It was centrally located. So there was a Thebes that was recreated by the Macedonians, but it wasn't from the original settlers. The same thing was true of Carthage. All the Carthaginians were wiped out or enslaved. The Punic language disappeared within a generation. Punic customs, I mean, they were isolated Punic customs, but there was never a known entity as the Punic language or Punic religion. Even in Augustine's time, he mentions people who, the modern Berbers were related to the original Carthaginian, somewhat related to them. They were intermarried, but it disappeared as an entity. There was a new Carthage that was refounded about 10 or 12 miles from the old Carthage, but it was a Roman colony. And the same is true of Tenochtitlan. The Aztec Empire was destroyed. The city was razed. The people who claimed to be Aztec were wiped out or enslaved. A new city arose, mostly built by the Tlaxcalans and the Spanish, called as we know it Mexico City. It didn't mean there weren't people wandering around that spoke the Aztec dialect of Nahuatl, or that there are not people today who say they're indigenous and speak that general pre-Spanish or pre-Columbian language. But there is no Aztec entity. There's no Aztec religion. There's no Aztec people after Cortez destroyed them. And I think, just to finish, the same is true of the idea of Christian Greek speakers in Asia Minor as an entity. They're after 1453. It's a little different because the physical space was damaged but not destroyed. It was sort of like the DNA was changed. The Ottomans saw the location, they saw the beautiful city, and they thought, rather than destroy it, we'll just recalibrate it. So Hagia Sophia becomes a mosque. Most of the religious shrines are turned into Islamic shrines. But the actual, to the degree there's any Byzantine Christian Greeks still there, it's either that they're enslaved or they work under special serf-like conditions for the Sultanate, or they're dispersed out in the countryside and they're hiding somewhere. And most of the Greek-speaking Black Sea minor states are wiped out within a generation after the fall of Constantinople. And today there are, there was and I mentioned in the epilogue, there was an attempt in 1921-22 to create a megala idea, and that is to recreate Byzantine Christian presence or dominance in Asia Minor, and that failed with a complete annihilation of the city of Smyrna.